Alexander Volkanovski, the UFC featherweight champion of the world, just fought the scariest man in the UFC roster. Islam Makhachev, a bigger fighter and champion in a weight class above, hasn't lost a fight since 2015. A guy who has already beaten him in his own backyard with a full camp. To take this fight, Volk is an absolute savage. Islam's scheduled opponent pulled out the fight with just 12 days notice, and when asked, Volk didn't hesitate to say yes. Everyone was watering, anticipating a David vs Goliath story, but unfortunately for Volk, it didn't go as planned. He got knocked out in the very first round, and he couldn't even throw a strike against the highly prepared Islam. But this is not the worst part for Volk. Alexander Volkanovski was considered the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. Basically what it means is that controlling by weight, he will kick everyone else's ass. Not only has amazing technical skills, Einstein level fighting IQ and cardio for days, but also one of the most resilient mindset in the history of the sport. And even Islam before the fight said, he never gives up. If I want to finish him, I need to turn his lights off. And Alexander Volkanovski, when asked by the media how could he take a fight like this with such a short notice, he replied, if anyone can get the job done, this is me. I back myself all the time. But when things were settled and the post-fight interview came up, he couldn't hold the truth back anymore. And in tears, he explained the reality of things.
I could have made better decisions but again, he's not somebody you should be taking a short notice with, but I needed it. Again, obviously a lot of people will say it's for the money and all that, but it was much more than that. It is hard. It really is hard for athletes. Sorry. I never thought I'd struggle with it, but for some reason, when I wasn't fighting or in camp, I was struggling a little bit, not fighting, doing my head in. I don't know how. Everything's fine. I've got a beautiful family, but I don't know. I think you just need to keep busy.
Despite living an amazing life, having success and a beautiful family, he's facing now the biggest fight of his life, an internal one. And this is something similar to what Israel Adesanya, a friend and training partner of Volk, experienced in the past.
And then after I got home, got a bonus, got a nice check from the UFC, and then got depressed. After my first fight, it happened. My second fight, it happened. My third fight, Brad Tavares fight, main event, fucking all the stimulus. It's like coffee. You drink coffee, and then you get all the stimulus, you're hyped, and then you come off it, you crash. I didn't anticipate the hype that was going to happen, the wave after the fight.
Can this stimulus impact our physiology and affect our mental health? Let's hear from an expert. Anna Lembke is an American psychiatrist and chief of the Stanford Addiction Medicine Dual Diagnostic Clinic at Stanford University. Without going through the whole video, which I link in the description if you're interested, she explained at the beginning how pleasure and pain circuits are co-located in the brain, and that dopamine flows pleasure and reward pathways when a specific stimulus occurs. Add this to the concept that the body aims at homeostasis, meaning it self-regulates to bring levels back to baseline. And now let's hear from her words.
To illustrate this graphically, what we see is that with the initial exposure to a high dopamine reward, we get a huge increase in dopamine, followed by precipitous fall in dopamine levels, not just to baseline, but actually below baseline to that dopamine deficit state. That's that moment of craving. But if we resist, those gremlins hop off and dopamine levels go back up to our baseline level position.
Now imagine going through a high-stake, high-reward situation. Let's say a UFC championship fight, where during the training camp, you spent months progressing toward a valuable goal. Then you enter fight week, and the media beg for your time, and everyone is chanting your name. And finally, you enter a primordial state of kill or be killed, where you feel alive like never before and fight another human being. And then, all of a sudden, you turn off the show and Alexander the Great Volkanovski becomes daddy, just a regular guy in Australia. Obviously, this is just speculation. We don't have the full picture of what's going on with his life and in his mind. However, while it's not a surprise anymore, we cannot help but wonder how someone who has reached the top of the mountain, both in terms of personal and professional achievements, can suffer of mental health issues. I'm personally a big fan of Volk, and I'm sure he will find a way to fight and beat his internal struggles.